After what was a flurry of media attention, the Veterans Administration disaster has been largely buried by the alphabet networks and those seeking the latest shiny thing to dazzle viewers. Not here at Midpoint. There's a new face possibly said to lead the VA, but one man will not alleviate the pain being felt by those who watch their children serve this nation and then in some cases one day never come home again. Let us welcome in the president of the Coalition to End Veteran Suicide and the father of soldier Neil Landsberg. At the core of this story, Bruce Landsberg joins us today. Bruce, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Bruce, if you would please give us a quick idea of Neil's story, because as I read it, honestly, I had to read it 2 or 3 times because as somebody who's very close to veterans, comes from a military veteran family, it was so tough to read that something like this could actually happen.
Well, in a nutshell, Neil went to the Citadel and graduated from there and was selected for Air Force Special Operations as a combat controller. And he served in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading a team over there. And he lost quite a number of teammates and so forth. He separated from the service in 2007 and came back to this country and reintegrated as best he could into our society. And he went to work for a defense contractor and held a top secret clearance. Unbeknownst to us was that he was having real problems with post-traumatic stress, and he volunteered at Walter Reed to help one of his teammates who lost both his legs. And he was active with Team Rubicon and a number of other veterans groups to help others, but he couldn't help himself. And last year, he suffered a breakdown, if you will, and told his brother, you know, I'm having suicidal thoughts. His brother checked him into a civilian hospital. They kept him for a couple of days, decided they couldn't do much with him, checked him into another civilian hospital, who after a few days said, well, he seems to be stable. Well, we weren't sure that he was, and we got a hold of the Veterans Administration, who said, well, we have no record of Captain Landsberg here. And my response is, how could you have no record? He's been serving on active duty for the last 5 years and in the reserves prior to that. And the answer was, well, we're sorry, but you have to fill out an application and send it in, and then we'll get back to you. And my wife, who was working on this, said, well, you know, we'll hand carry it over. No, 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 you have to mail it in. Well, we sent in the application, and 3 days later, our son took his life. 3 weeks, just as the VA promised, they responded with a letter back saying that he was denied coverage because he fell outside the parameters that the VA had established. So, an unfortunate situation, and unfortunately, the veterans' suicide epidemic is claiming approximately 22 lives a day. And to put that into context, in 1 year, we lose more veterans to suicide than we've pretty much lost in the 10 years of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars.
Every year, 8,000 veterans' families across America lose a son, a daughter, or a parent to suicide. This can't be something that's new. This can't be as if it's brand new stats that the military and the Veterans Administration has found. Why is what people will simply ask. Could they not see the evidence in front of their face?
Well, I think that's a very good question. We have come up with a couple of what we think are easy to implement suggestions while the bureaucracy sorts itself out. I realize the difficulty of melding computer systems is complicated, but maybe every veteran, before they out process from the military, should be required to log in and spend an hour getting into the VA system. That takes no bureaucracy, and it's easy to do. The other thing is there's a discussion about the VA not having the capacity to deal with the mental health aspects of all of this and all the other things that they have to deal with. So they say, well, let's go ahead and put these veterans into civilian facilities. We have firsthand experience that many civilian facilities are not trained in military culture and ethics, and we think that they should really get some specialized training in this before they can accept government dollars.
It really comes down to civilian expertise, I would guess. You wrote about this, but certainly a lot of people have talked about this. It would seem as if the Veterans Administration simply does not have the right people in place who are able to recognize a medical problem, a mental health problem, that they simply just haven't been trained, haven't been taught, haven't been brought in. What is it there? I guess we're all trying to find that disconnect here as to why this could have slipped through the cracks in so many places.
I think the focus is predominantly, we work on the physical. We've done tremendous strides in helping people with war injuries and that sort of thing. But traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress are not things that we can see. So if we can't see it, we sort of think, well, maybe it isn't real, or it indicates some kind of weakness on the part of the individual. Mental health issues in this country are not unique to the military, and we see this in some of our mass shootings and things of that nature. I really think that the effort has to be that there's a lot more effort put into mental health in the country, not just for veterans, but across the board. So there are probably a number of ways that we can deal with this, and one of the most important is raising awareness, which is exactly what your program is doing. Is we need to let people know that this is a problem. If you have a family member who has separated from the military, or you have a coworker or something like that, we really should be watching how they're doing and be sensitive to some of the things that they're facing, many of which we don't immediately see.
Your son took his life on May 9th of 2013, so we're just a year more than that, 13, 14 months. In the time since this happened, and of course that's when this scandal has all come out, but have you seen anything that makes you believe, at least before this scandal broke, that something was being done to try and fix this or make it better, or was it simply just business as usual?
I think there are probably some people who are trying to do the right thing. I think, as we've seen, as the scandal has broken, that the leadership within the Veterans Administration and within the Department of Defense hasn't really addressed this problem. And I don't want to appear too cynical about this, but it's sort of, thank you very much for your service, have a nice life. And, you know, you get to deal with the problems that come as a result of war. And I'd like to say also, people use the term PTSD. This isn't really a disorder. This is a byproduct of anybody who has served in combat. I think most people have it to varying degrees. Some cope with this successfully, and unfortunately, 8,000 of them every year do not.
Is the VA complicit then in the death of your son?
That's, I would say that they do have some responsibility. It's not easy to assess blame in this, but I think they could have done a far better job, and had the policies been in place, we shouldn't have been turned down when we called for help desperately, asked for it, and didn't receive it. We were told, well, there's a process. We'll work through the process, and then we'll get to you, maybe. And in fact, they didn't when we got the letter, which of course was too late. But even at that, they said, sorry, but he doesn't qualify.
Would you like to see a criminal investigation?
I don't know if that would help or not. What I would like to see is some accountability on the part of the Veterans Administration and the Department of Defense. Why is it that their two computer systems can't talk to one another? Why is it when somebody becomes a member of the military armed services, they aren't automatically enrolled in the VA system, so as soon as they get out, it's seamless? And given the problems that we have with PTS, as you said, this isn't anything new. When somebody calls and says, hey, I need help, there ought to be an immediate response rather than, well, we'll get to you when we get to you.
We only have about 20 seconds left. Do you think that Robert McDonald can lead this group, this organization out of the darkness here, or is he just a stopgap?
I think that's a question that remains to be answered.
Do you have hopes?
Always. Always. We can't go backwards. We have to go forward.
Mr. Landsberg, to you and your family, we want to say thank you very much for your service. As those who had a son in the military, we thank your son for his service as well. It is a story that we are going to continue to follow here. It is a story that is close to my heart and my soul, and we will continue to try and bring this forward to the American people as often as we possibly can. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, sir.
It is something that hopefully Robert McDonald, as he leads the VA, I hope he sees this interview, and I hope he sees the pain in the eyes of a father who lost his son because the organization that was charged to care for him completely and totally failed. We'll take a break, come back on the other side. This is Midpoint, where we question everything.